No. Oh. Hey everyone, Gorthony Grindtano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new M83 record, Junk, famed French synth pop outfit M83, or rather a project masterminded by multi-instrumentalist and producer Anthony Gonzalez. And with M83, he hit a pretty fantastic stride in the 2000s with records like Saturday's Equal Youth, Dead Cities, Before the Dawn Heals Us. But then in 2011, I feel like M83 made a slight misstep with the album Hurry Up, We Are Dreaming. On the one hand, this project featured some of M83's biggest and most high production songs yet. Just huge, glistening, multi-layered instrumentals. Some pretty punchy beats as well. But these high points were weighed down by a lot of pretty lackluster moments too. A lot of which, in the runtime of this project, I think was kind of unnecessary. I think there was a lot of filler, a lot of songs that were essentially just padding this thing out in order to fulfill the weird conceptual idea that Anthony had going into this album, and that's essentially that it is two sister records, both of which aren't even that long. They're like 30 minutes or so each, and together they kind of just create two very mediocre records, whereas it would have been much more enjoyable to just have culled the best tracks out of these two albums and just have one good album. And that's kind of what I'm hoping I get on Junk. This is not a double album. This is not a set of sister albums. It's one single record. And on this album, Anthony doesn't seem to have married himself to some over-the-top concept or anything. So are we just going to get a bunch of good tracks? This album isn't necessarily a return to form either. I don't think this record is going to sit well with a lot of M83 fans, mostly because it's not really what fans of this project are going to expect or even want. Rather than handing us another album with M83's trademark sound, Anthony has seen fit to go back and deliver to us a variety of tunes that indulge in a bunch of different vintage pop styles, mostly from like the mid-70s to the mid-80s. A lot of which could have been an inspiration for him as he was starting M83. I guess you might be able to see this as M83's very own random access memories in a way. But even though it seems like this project is reaching back to a lot of very old sounds in pop and synth pop, I don't know, it's not really like Gonzalez here is giving them the epic tribute that Daft Punk did on their last album. In fact, it seems like Anthony is such a skilled songwriter and producer at this point that he can reimagine a lot of this music with his eyes closed, or just reimagine these kinds of songs in his sleep. And right from the start, this record has its low points, like the lead single, Do It, Try It, which honestly did not have me excited at all to listen to this record. It does not sound nearly as smooth or as well put together as many previous M83 tracks, even the biggest and the best and the catchiest songs off of Hurry Up, We're Dreaming. The track intros with these very odd vocals and kind of thin, stabby piano chords that don't know whether or not they want to soundtrack a dance song, or I don't know, there's like some chord progressions here that remind me of like a piano saloon tune. And while I've never really considered M83 to be the kind of project that shows off any kind of lyrical genius, the lyrics on this track sort of seem below the very average standard that M83 has set so far. The chorus on this track is super indecipherable, the vocals are garbled, they're buried, everything is so thick and compressed and just so oppressive. The cheap, crunchy synth bass doesn't really sound that great either, and the sudden ending on this song only further adds to just how unimpressive it is. After this lead single and opening track, the album hit me with a series of songs that featured nothing but sensual synth leads and vintage pop grooves, some string sections, some sweaty sax solos from, that 70s, 80s era that I talked about. Even a few adult contemporary vocal ballads from that same era of time. And this vibe even comes through on the interlude tracks here, which some of the interlude tracks were, I don't know, some of the momentum killers on the last album, so I'm a little disappointed to hear that they come up here once again. But moments like Moon Crystal, I actually really enjoy. The instrumental here actually reminds me of, I don't know, a sitcom theme from the 70s or the 80s. It's really, a heart-warming lyric about family and friends away from being a sitcom theme. While the song Tension is like a bit of very sad mood music that would be played during a montage where our main character in this sitcom, made a bad decision or something, and now he's got to say sorry. But right after this song, Moon Crystal, is the song For the Kids with Suzanne Sundfør on lead vocals. This is undeniably a highlight for me on this album. It's a pretty tune, and I like it. You know, this kind of slow, very emotional synth pop ballad. But if you wanted to hear this kind of music, you could easily grab $5 and head down to your local Goodwill and look for any album that came out late 70s, early 80s in the used record bin. And chances are you would get a more consistent album, especially if that album is a Stevie Wonder album. Anthony definitely pulls from him quite a few times on this record, especially with that harmonica solo at the very end of Junk. But then there are other ballads on here that just don't go over as well, like the track Atlantique Sud, which is a little duet that is super emotionally flat. Flatter than a cornfield. The vocals on here are so passionless, it actually sucks any appeal out of the song. This is also an issue on the track Solitude, which is another vocal pop track, another ballad with huge instrumentation, but Anthony doesn't step up to the plate to provide the big vocal character and presentation that this instrumental is begging for. These in the background, behind the scenes, just completely unaffected and emotionally just hollow vocals just aren't doing it for this type of music. It's like Anthony has brought everything but the personality that these songs need in order to be carried properly. And even the other guest singers, with the exception of Suzanne, are pretty unimpressive too. There's not a single vocal take on this record that I liked. Even Beck's appearance at the very end of the album is almost anonymous. I would never have known it was Beck if I hadn't seen the credit. The harder hitting cuts in the track listing here are passable for the most part. At the very least, they provide a danceable groove and a candy-coated synth lead. But there's very little memorability and very little character to these songs too. At the end of the day, hearing M83 sort of indulge in all of these older pop styles just seems like such a hollow pursuit. This album serves as more of a reminder of why a lot of these sounds are no longer in style, more than it does a reminder of, hey, this is this really cool era of music that there's still potential in, and that, you know, it's cool to revisit. Like with the album Hurry Up We're Dreaming, as I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of interlude tracks on here that, while they're not terrible, they just don't really seem like they serve a purpose, as all they're doing is gluing together a bunch of very unentertaining songs. This, in a way, reminds me a lot of the sister albums from Hurry Up We're Dreaming. It's kind of like the third sister album in this series. The sister that the two sisters previously didn't even know about, and mom mistreated her and locked her up in the attic to live the rest of her life, and now she's back and she's looking for revenge. I'm feeling a strong 3 to a light 4 on this record, honestly. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You the best? You the best? What should I review next? Hit the like, if you like. Please subscribe, or you'll die. Watch one of these other reviews over here. Have a nice day. Anthony Fantano, M83, forever.